The summer of 2025 has brought Ukraine to one of its darkest hours. Across the eastern battlefields, the Russian army presses forward, and one city now finds itself at the center of this storm. Pokrovsk, once just another coal mining town in Donetsk Oblast, Pokrovsk has become a prize with enormous military significance. If captured, it could open the gateway deeper into Ukrainian-held Donbas and fracture the fragile defensive belt that Kyiv has struggled to maintain. The city is not simply a place on the map, it is a lifeline. Its highways carry supplies, reinforcements, and medical aid to the front. To lose it would be to risk unraveling Ukraine's position in the east. Since July, the Russian advance has been methodical, grinding, and bloody. They captured Razin, Koptiv, and Novotoretsky, pushing across the Kazini-Terez River, a natural barrier that Ukraine hoped would slow them down. From there, their spearheads surged toward Rodinsk, with eyes set on the TO515 highway. This stretch of road is not just asphalted, it is an artery. Without it, Murmurad, the largest town east of Pokrovsk, would be isolated, and Pokrovsk itself would be left with only one major supply route. The E50, a single road feeding an entire defense, is a dangerous gamble in modern warfare, especially under constant Russian artillery fire and drone strikes. The Russian army, however, does not rely only on brute force. In late July, saboteur units infiltrated from the west, slipping into Pokrovsk itself from the direction of Zaporizhia. For a moment, panic gripped the defenders. Russian troops were inside the city. Though Ukrainian forces destroyed the unit, the message was unmistakable. Pokrovsk is not secure. It is encircled by danger. From the north, south, and west, Russian formations inch closer, tightening the noose. Every day, shells fall, and trenches are dug deeper. Civilians have begun evacuating, their lives packed into cars and trains, leaving behind a city that may soon be reduced to rubble. For the Ukrainian command, the challenge is stark. Reinforcements are thin. Manpower shortages plague every sector. Transitioning from a brigade system to a corps system has created confusion and delays in coordination. Soldiers on the ground whisper of exhaustion, of fighting without rest, of entire units being whittled down to half strength. Yet, despite the fatigue, they know what is at stake. Pokrovsk is not just a city, it is a symbol. Its survival will tell Ukraine's people and allies that the defense still stands. Its fall, however, could mark a turning point, emboldening Moscow's ambition for the Donbas. Pokrovsk is the most visible pressure point, but it is far from the only one. Russia's strategy is clear: stretch the Ukrainian army in every possible direction. Along the Oskil River, Russian forces have expanded their bridgeheads, inching westward toward Kran, Persh, Dovhenk, and Radkivka. Their advance near Kupiansk brings them dangerously close to the PO7 highway. Should they seize it, Ukrainian troops holding the east bank of the Oskil would be cut off, their supply lines severed. Kupiansk, already battered from months of shelling, teeters on the edge of isolation. Further south, the situation grows more complex. In the Toretsk-Kostantinivka sector, Russian troops have pushed forward with bloody determination. Yablanivka, Lenidivka, Delivkol have fallen. After weeks of brutal street-to-street combat, Toretsk itself appears lost. Now, just 15 to 20 kilometers separate the Russian army from Kostantinivka, the first stronghold in what Ukrainians call the Donbas fortress belt. If this line cracks, the defense of the eastern Donbas could collapse like dominoes. Even in Zaporizhia, where Ukraine once mounted its great counteroffensive, Moscow has reignited the fight. At first, their renewed assault seemed like a full-scale offensive, raising alarms across Western capitals. But as days passed, the picture grew clear. It was not a broad campaign, but a tactical push. Still, it was effective enough. On July 8, Russian forces captured Kamiansky, putting additional pressure on Ukrainian units that were already stretched thin. Each new advance forces Kyiv to shift troops, weakening another sector in return. Russia has even tested Ukraine's defenses. Further north in Sumy and Kharkiv, in the borderlands of Sumy Oblast, the 40th and 155th Naval Infantry Brigades pressed forward in early summer, briefly threatening a breakthrough. But Ukrainian defenders hit back, inflicting heavy casualties and liberating Kharkivka. Still, even here, the Russian army maintains a buffer zone, a constant thorn in Ukraine's side. Meanwhile, in Kharkiv Oblast, Russian troops crossed near Malawi, probing yet another weak point. Alone, these actions might seem minor. Together, they reveal the Kremlin's design: keep Ukraine guessing, Never allow it to concentrate its forces, force its defenses to fray. Behind these tactical moves lies a grim arithmetic. According to Western estimates, Russia has poured staggering manpower into these offensive stents of thousands of soldiers sacrificed for incremental gains. Since May 1st alone, more than 31,000 Russian soldiers are believed to have been killed. Since the start of 2025, perhaps 100,000 dead. These are losses that would cripple most armies. But Moscow accepts the blood price, gambling that Ukraine will break first. If the ground war is a slow grind, the air war is a storm. Each night, Ukrainian cities brace for waves of Shahed drones and missile strikes. July alone saw some of the heaviest attacks of the war, 300 to 400 drones launched in a single campaign. And Russia's drone industry, backed by Iranian designs and domestic production, shows no signs of slowing down. Military analysts warn that Moscow could soon launch between 1,000 and 2,000 Shaheds in a single day, enough to overwhelm even the most modern air defenses. For civilians, this means unending terror. Apartment blocks collapse under strikes. Power plants flicker out. Hospitals work by generator light. For Ukraine's defenders, it means a constant drain on resources. Every Shahed shutdown costs precious interceptor missiles Ukraine must beg and buy from abroad. The Kremlin's calculation is cruel but simple. Exhaust Ukraine's air defenses, drain its western stockpiles, and break the will of its people. Yet, this air campaign also reveals Russia's desperation. Strategic bombing did not defeat Britain in 1940, nor Germany in 1945, nor Vietnam in the 1970s. Instead, it hardened resistance. And so it has in Ukraine. Far from breaking, Ukrainian society adapts. Civil defense systems have grown more efficient. Engineers repair power grids in days, not weeks. Volunteers raise funds for drones, night vision, and protective equipment. And above all, international aid has begun to shift focus toward neutralizing the Shahed threat once and for all. In early July, President Zelensky announced a groundbreaking deal with the American company Swiftbeat to develop hundreds of thousands of interceptor drones specifically designed to counter Shahed. Britain followed with a pledge of more than 5,000 Thalys-built air defense interceptors. Germany's Hensoldt committed to delivering TRML-4D and Spexer radar systems. The Netherlands and Germany invested directly into Ukraine's growing drone industry. Denmark and Sweden announced fresh packages, including artillery systems and armored vehicles. Canada and Norway pledged financial backing for Ukrainian drone producers. Piece by piece, Ukraine and its allies are constructing a shield. The numbers remain daunting, but the resolve is unmistakable. If Russia seeks to drown Ukraine beneath a tidal wave of drones, Kyiv and its partners are determined to turn that tide against them. Every new system delivered, every radar deployed, every drone launched in defense is a message to Moscow. The skies will not be yours. In wars like these, battlefields are shaped as much in distant capitals as in trenches. And in July, Washington stunned observers with a dramatic shift. At first, the U.S. appeared to be pulling back. Early in the month, the administration announced a pause in military supplies to Ukraine, citing the need to replenish American stockpiles. Panic rippled through Kyiv. Without American arms, could Ukraine survive the summer? But then came the U.S. President Trump, angered by Russia's unrelenting drone strikes, made clear he was not prepared to watch Ukraine collapse, to allow Putin to dictate terms. On July 10th, he announced that weapons would once again flow to Kyiv. The twist that would be channeled through NATO, with the alliance footing the bill. Days later, standing beside NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, Trump declared that 17 Patriot air defense systems, likely meaning launchers, would be sent to Ukraine. Billions of dollars in new weapons, he promised, were on the way. And there was more. Trump issued a stark warning to Moscow: end the war, or face crippling tariffs. At first, he set a 50-day deadline, threatening 100% secondary tariffs on Russia's trade partners. Then he cut the timeline to just 12 days. Soon after, he warned India directly 25% tariffs, plus penalties if it continued to buy Russian oil and arms. His message to China, too, was unambiguous. Russia's lifeline of oil sales, the very foundation of its war economy, was now under attack. This approach echoed the European Union's newest sanctions, unveiled on July 18th in its 18th package. Brussels lowered the oil price cap to $47.60 a barrel, tightened restrictions on Russia's shadow fleet, and pledged greater enforcement. Together with U.S. threats, These measures mark the most aggressive economic squeeze on Moscow since the war began. Whether Russia can, whether it remains to be seen. At the same time, Washington's aid extended beyond missiles and tariffs. Reports emerged of U.S. plans to invest directly in Ukraine's drone industry. Deals were signed for Bradley fighting vehicles, HAWK missile systems, and spare parts. For the first time since the Biden administration, public announcements of American weapons to Ukraine filled headlines once again. Kyiv's diplomats breathed a sigh of relief. For now at least, Washington was back in the fight. For all the noise of Moscow's advances, its gains remain limited. A few villages here, a small town there yet. The cost is catastrophic. Western estimates suggest that Russia has lost over 4,000 tanks, 10,000 vehicles, more than 2,000 artillery systems, and hundreds of aircraft and helicopters since the invasion began. Each month, the butcher's bill grows, draining men and machines alike. Meanwhile, signs of strain appear within Russia itself. Economic forecasts warn of looming recession. Major banks may soon require bailouts. Non-military sectors languish, starved of resources as the Kremlin funnels everything into its war machine. Even Putin has hinted at reduced defense spending by 2026, a subtle but telling admission that this pace cannot last forever. Ukraine, too, faces exhaustion. Its manpower is stretched. Its politics, strained. In late July, Parliament attempted to bring independent anti-corruption bodies under government control, sparking the largest protests since the war began. Within days, Zelensky reversed course, bowing to public pressure. This moment revealed something profound. Even in the crucible of war, Ukrainian society demands accountability, freedom, and democracy. It is a resilience Russia cannot bomb away. And so, as Pokrovsk braces for the storm, the war enters another phase. Russia pushes forward, hungry for a breakthrough. Ukraine digs in, bloodied but unbroken. The United States and Europe recalibrate, determined not to let Kyiv fall. The question that lingers is not whether battles will rage, they will, but whether Russia can achieve a decisive victory before its economy falters, before its people grow weary, before Ukraine's allies close ranks tighter than ever. This war has become more than territory. It is a test of will, endurance, and the belief in freedom's survival against tyranny's march. The fall or defense of Pokrovsk will echo far beyond the Donbas. It may shape the entire trajectory of the conflict. So, as missiles streak across the night sky and soldiers dig deeper into their trenches, the world waits. Will Ukraine's allies deliver enough, soon enough, to hold the line? Or will Russia finally claim the prize it has chased for months? The next chapter is being written, now in fire, steel, and sacrifice. And if you want to follow that story, as it unfolds, make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell, and join the discussion below. Because history is not just something we read, it is happening before our eyes.